Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well, and welcome to a brand new update on Bitcoin. In this video, we're going to be talking about the next potential big move on Bitcoin, and also we're going to try and answer a question which many have been asking me, which is the next potential wave count on Bitcoin. In other words, what are the current potential wave counts we could be dealing with on Bitcoin? So we're going to talk about that in this video as well. Now, before I start, let me just first of all say that I had planned originally to make a video this week about the situation if Bitcoin has not bottomed. But because of some of the interesting things happening on the charts of Bitcoin at the moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post that video for you by next week. So that video will be coming potentially by next Saturday. All right, guys, let's talk about the next potential big move here on Bitcoin. Now, as you can see here on the chart, a few days ago, I actually opened a few long positions on Bitcoin, which is doing quite well at the present moment. It's been making some gains. But I want to tell you more about the thinking and the methodology that goes into that as well. So one of the first things you'll see here on my chart is that I usually use two charts. I usually like to compare both charts, which include and those which exclude weekend data. So for example, the chart I'm looking at here on MT4 is one which excludes weekend data. But I also like to look at the chart which includes weekend data as well. The reason I like to take a look at both of these charts is because I found that charts which exclude weekend data tend to be actually quite more reliable, and actually they provide a different dimension that you don't usually see on the charts which include weekend data. I've also mentioned previously that charts which include weekend data, one of the problems is that weekend data can often be driven by bot activity, which is not always a good thing. So by taking a look at a chart which excludes weekend data, like the one here on MT4, we can often see a different dimension, which is also very important and interesting and also useful to us as well. For example, notice how when the price of Bitcoin dropped down to this key moving average you see here, okay? So notice it came down to the 21 exponential moving average. It's a blue line you see here on the chart. And notice how beautifully it held and protected that 21 moving average. You see right there. It's hugging this moving average, this blue line, beautifully. On the trading view charts, what instead you see is that actually price had gone below the 21 moving average. And here's the thing, if you'd just been looking at a chart which includes weekend data, like the one you see here, then you'd be missing something important, a key piece of information. And that information is how beautifully price of Bitcoin was hugging and protecting the 21 moving average. Now, you're probably thinking, is that useful? Is that important to know? Yes, it's extremely important to know. Here's the thing, one of the key principles we've learned in technical analysis is this. When price makes a pullback to the 21 moving average and holds that level, holds it and hugs it, and in fact, keeps protecting that level like that, that is a sign of strength in the market. Take a look, for example, let me show you a good example of this just a few weeks ago, a few months ago, as a matter of fact. Notice back in April, when the price of Bitcoin fell down to the 21 moving average, it held it and respected it. As a matter of fact, it kept protecting it and it kept sort of maintaining itself above the 21 moving average you see right there. That is very important, and it's a sign of strength in the market. By the way, it did the exact same thing back in March as well. If you just take a look at the month of March, we see something very similar. Price of Bitcoin fell to the 21 moving average, held it, protected it, as you see over and over and over again. So guys, one of the most important things in technical and chart analysis is that always focus on what the price is doing close to the 21 moving average. By the way, I forgot to mention this as well. So back in May, when price of Bitcoin had that massive drop, look what it did to the 21 moving average. It held it. As a matter of fact, it touched it briefly and it bounced off that level. Again, a sign of strength in the market. So that is something important that any chartists can agree on. The second thing that we also want to pay attention to is this. So when the price of Bitcoin falls down to the 21 moving average, we also want to pay attention to what the momentum is doing. So that's why I want to look at what's happening down here. Now, take a look at this. What's interesting is, notice what the pulse momentum was doing at the time. So notice how the momentum on the pulse here is going negative, so getting negative, negative, and then starts to move from negative to less negative. That is also very important to know. Why? Because it's a key mathematical feature of any market that when the momentum is shifting from negative, so when the momentum is shifting from being deeply negative to going to less negative, it's going towards a zero line, that's a sign of strength. It's a sign that potentially bulls or buyers could be taking control. So guys, one of the most important things that a trader or chartist could be looking at is what is the momentum doing? And if the momentum is moving from negative to less negative, it's going towards a zero line, that could be an important and interesting clue in the market. So notice, for example, how on the charts here, again, let me just show you this on the chart of Bitcoin, how the price of Bitcoin was moving from negative, so deeply negative, to flattening out to becoming less negative. By the way, let me show you one more example that could be useful here. Let me go back to the month of April. So notice in the month of April, when the price of Bitcoin fell down to the 21 moving average right there, look at the momentum down here. And in fact, let me just zoom in here so you can see this very clearly. And what you'll see here, as the momentum was falling, went below zero, and then notice the shift in the momentum. It goes from negative to less negative and actually goes back above the zero line, or goes towards the zero line. So that's also a sign of strength, and we can see what Bitcoin did next. It then managed to reverse, pivot around this area and start to move in the upward direction. Did the exact same thing just very recently, as you can see right there. So price of Bitcoin fell down to the 21 moving average, starts to hug it very closely. You can see moving sideways, holding itself and hugging this area, and then the momentum starts to shift. Momentum shift happens over here, and generally that's a sign of strength, a sign that potentially bulls could be taking control here. And as you can see here, price of Bitcoin since then actually has managed to surge quite strongly higher. All right, guys, let's talk about the potential wave counts now on Bitcoin. And for that, I want to switch now to a lower time frame. I want to go to a 4-hour chart of Bitcoin. Now, for those of you not familiar with wave counts or Elliott wave theory simply says that markets tend to trend or move in the direction of the trend in 5 waves. And if you just take a look at this chart on the 4-hour time frame on the micro picture, and if I just zoom out slightly, okay, now as you can see here, this is our own LT Elliott wave indicator, by the way, and you can see that potentially the wave counts on this 4-hour chart of Bitcoin could be that we're forming a 5-wave move, and that this could potentially be our 5-wave move in Bitcoin. Let's take a look at this a bit more closely. By the way, one important clue that is always useful when trying to identify wave 4 or potential wave 4 is how messy the movement on the chart is. One of the characteristics of a wave 4 is that wave 4 has a lot of overlaps, sometimes actually has a lot of overlaps, and wave 4 can sometimes be highly unpredictable and very messy. And you can see, for example, yourself how very messy this chart movement is. It just keeps going up, down, a lot of overlaps you see here. All right, guys, so when you see a lot of overlaps, a lot of messy movements on the chart, after a strong rally, by the way, so if you see a strong rally on the chart, like the one we saw in the last couple of months, and then you see a lot of overlapping structures, a lot of messy movement on the chart, that means we could potentially be dealing with a probable wave 4. So according to our Elliott wave picture, it's potentially possible that wave 3 may have formed around the, in other words, topped around the 9,100 level mark. And since then, we've been forming this sort of ABC structure, ABC corrective move. And if therefore wave 4, if wave 4 has completed and bottomed around about the 4th of June, that means what we could be dealing with at the present moment is wave 5. Now, at the present moment, this is a probability that we might be dealing with a wave 5 situation. And if this rally in Bitcoin can exceed the highs of 9,100, this could increase the probability that we could be dealing with a wave 5 situation here in Bitcoin. Now, I know you're probably thinking, okay, so what does it mean? Well, according to Elliott wave theory, the next likely targets, let me just squash this chart up a little bit. As you can see here from our wave 5 projections, we could be dealing with the 9,400 level marks to potentially 9,800. And in fact, if I just do a Fibonacci extension, let me just do the Fibonacci retracement or extensions. So from the highs of wave 3 to the bottom of wave 4, potential wave 4, and the levels we're looking at here is the 127.2 extension, which puts it about 9,500, to the 161.8 extension. That's the golden ratio, by the way, puts it about the 10,000 level mark, as you can see right there. So if this is a wave 5 situation, in other words, if we're dealing with the situation that I mentioned before, let me just show you. If this is our wave 4 and this is wave 5, then the wave 5 could be taking us. If we go above the highs we made of 9,100, we could be dealing with a next situation of 9,500 to 10,000 level marks as the next potential target on Bitcoin. By the way, that also depends on this. That depends if Bitcoin can stay above and protect the 8,000 level mark and the 7,400 level mark. All right, guys, going back to the charts, for example, here on TradingView, In other words, Bitcoin must remain. Bitcoin needs to remain and protect the 8,000 level mark and the 7,400 level mark if this is the next wave 5 move up towards the 9,500 to 10,000 level mark. That means this, by the way, guys, that if Bitcoin cannot sustain this rally, and if it cannot get above the highs it made of 9,100, and if it instead falls in the next few days, for example, below the 8,000 level, and especially if it falls below 7,400, that means we could be dealing with a different and more complex wave 4 structure, and maybe even the much more serious wave 2 retracement we've been talking about on Bitcoin. All right, guys, before I finish the video, let me just say something quite quickly, which is that if you haven't already clicked on the bell icon next to the subscribe button, please make sure you do so. The reason is that I've heard that YouTube might be making some changes to its algorithm potentially soon, which means that my videos might not appear on your feed maybe in a few weeks. So guys, to make sure you don't miss our future videos, please make sure you click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button. That way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. Thanks very much, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video update. Bye for now.